You should already realize by now that Wesley's theology is very balanced. Indeed, I think we can use Albert Outler's language here of conjunction, that it's a conjunctive theology. It's both and, not either or. And one of the great conjunctions in Wesley's theology is law and grace. Not simply law and not simply grace. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the moral law and what a very strong role it plays in Wesley's overall theology. You already realize from reading the new collection of sermons that Wesley wrote at least 4 sermons specifically on the moral law. He wrote the original Nature, Properties, and Use of the Law. He wrote Sermon on the Mount, Discourse 5, which is basically about the moral law. And then also the law established by faith, Discourse 1, Discourse 2. The moral law is the context in which grace is to be understood. Wesley's employment of the moral law also is similar to how other theologians in the church's past history employed the law as well. I'm thinking here principally of Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas also had great explication of the moral law in his theology, and he also connected it to natural law. Wesley does as well. As a matter of fact, we have to speak of the moral law and the natural law in Wesley's theology. And this issue becomes very important when we see how Wesley employed natural law arguments to turn back human sin. We see this most clearly in the vicious practice of American slavery. Indeed, Wesley wrote a treatise impugning this practice with the title Thoughts Upon Slavery. And in this work, he makes a specific natural law argument, as you'll see in a few moments. He starts out this treatise by writing about how some tried to justify slavery by appealing to the laws of the land. In other words, that it is legal. And Wesley challenges this, of course. He indicates that the legal is not always moral. How does he have a basis for making this distinction? Well, he does so in terms of natural law. Natural law pertains to the human as a human being. We say, more technically, the human qua human. And so we're going to see Wesley appeal to what pertains to human nature, and that cannot be denied by state law, by federal law, or any other kind of human law, positive law. And we have a basis for critiquing those laws, for distinguishing what is the legal and what is the moral by the standard of natural law itself. Okay, and so Wesley's going to write in this treatise, notwithstanding 10,000 laws, right is right and wrong is wrong still. And so he argues that this is opposed to natural justice. And there are a number of reasons that are offered in this treatise that people have offered from time to time to justify slavery, and Wesley argues against all of them. He appeals to human sentiment, particularly the moral sentiment of sympathy, and he questions the reader along these lines. Is there a God? You know there is. He is a just God. Then there must be a state of retribution. And so Wesley's thinking about what human beings have done to other human beings under the name of slavery. He continues in the treatise by arguing, quote, when you saw the flowing eyes, the heaving breasts, or the bleeding sides and tortured limbs of your fellow creatures. See, Wesley's reminding everyone that we're all created in the image and likeness of God. We are all creatures of a God of holy love. He continues, "Was you a stone or a brute? Did you look upon them with the eyes of a tiger?" And so we see Wesley appealing to also moral sentiments here, particularly sympathy, but the thrust of his argument is in accordance with natural law, that which pertains to the human qua human. "Immediately quit the horrid trade," Wesley counsels. "At all events, be an honest man." End of quote. So he writes. Towards the ends of the treatise, he makes the natural law argument explicit. He writes this: "Liberty is the right of every human creature as soon as he breathes the vital air," Wesley points out. "No human law can deprive him of that right which he derives from the law of nature. Give liberty to whom liberty is due, that is, to every child of man, to every partaker of human nature." This appeal to natural law, to undermine, to critique, and to show the evil of the practice of human slavery, is the same kind of reasoning that Martin Luther King Jr. used during the 1950s and 60s as he challenged some of the state laws in the American South. He had a basis to do so, and by appealing to something higher, by appealing to something we might call objective, that law which transcends us, that law which basically expresses what pertains to all human beings precisely as being human, what is in accordance with human nature, human essence. I think we have to pay special attention to this line of reasoning today because it's not very popular in our postmodern context. Postmodernism has difficulty with affirming the universality of a human nature, that there is an essence, something definite that we could point to. However, if we lose that, if we lose a definite essence or human nature, we also lose the means by which we can challenge very unjust laws that are enacted by states and governments both near and far.